This is the VHS Vault. I'm Jason, and of course, right next to me is my co-host, Jason.
Yeah, hello.
Welcome, sir. Well, should I say howdy?
Howdy to you, too.
I feel this is a bit of a good old boys' night tonight. So, if you haven't seen by the thumbnail already, we're talking Cannonball Run.
Cannonball.
1981 it was released, Jason. And can I give a description of how I would put this in a category of film? To me, this movie is a good old boys blockbuster. This is very American Southern kind of attempt at a massive blockbuster.
I would agree. I would say it's a star-studded version of the Wacky Races.
Or even Gumball Rally. You could
Yes, it's a live-action cartoon.
Yes.
There are no consequences to anything. Nobody has to pay for their actions. It's just pure wish fulfillment.
It is. And it's such a fantastical concept, the Cannonball Run. Does it shock you to know that race actually existed in the 70s?
It did. I had heard that it did, but it was one of those things where I think that in my memories of this movie, I kind of combined this movie with the sequel and Smokey and the Bandit and maybe a couple of other car race comedies. So I wasn't sure what happened and what didn't. Was the Cannonball Run real or was it not? It actually was a real race. And the ambulance that Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise drives in the movie was the same ambulance that the director and the screenwriter raced in the Cannonball Run in. So it was an actual Cannonball Run race car.
And which was amazing to hear.
Yeah,
the fact that they entered the last one. And apparently the thing kicked ass. That's why they decided to make an ambulance the main car for the leads of the film.
Yeah, and it made sense.
Yeah.
Even logically, it made sense. If you wanted to go really fast and not get pulled over, ambulance.
Now, I'm going to go back to the thumbnail again because of the poster, which I absolutely love of this movie.
Great.
I think it's a Drew Struzan. I think we would agree. Maybe. I'm looking for his signature, but it's not there. But look at that cast. I mean, in 1981, that is a blockbuster cast. I mean, you've got Burt Reynolds there, who at that time, Jason, is at maximum star power.
Yes, he actually set a record for being paid the most money to be in this movie. I think it was $5 million, which today is like nothing. I think the extras get paid $5 million nowadays. But yeah, it really is. You just look at all these different characters in this movie, all these different actors, and you're just like, wow, this is like a who's who of 1981. And it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad whenever you look at that poster and realize only two of them are still with us. Adrian Barbeau and it's not Alan Alda, the man who played Klinger on MASH.
Jamie Farr.
Jamie Farr. Yeah, those are the only two who are still with us.
That's crazy. What was interesting you mentioned about Burt Reynolds given $5 million. He did not want to do this movie.
And I don't know why. Why would you not want to do this movie?
And in his head, by the time he'd finished filming Smoking the Bandit Part 2, he had declared to the director, the same director, Hal Needham, that he is never racing in a car in a movie again for the rest of his career.
Well, that's why they put him in an ambulance.
That's right. But I think once he knew the type of film he was going to be making, he was on board, because what Burt Reynolds was also very smart at that time was picking the right projects for himself.
Yes.
Now,
yes,
the audience, he was a great dramatic actor, no doubt about that, Burt Reynolds. But the audience loved Burt Reynolds for that version of Burt Reynolds that we get in this movie. Because it's the same version we get in Smokey and the Bandit. That kind of cheeky, charming kind of, lead character that's kind of in on the joke the whole time. So
yes. And Burt Reynolds said of this movie, I did that film for all the wrong reasons. I never liked it. I did it to help out a friend of mine, Hal Needham, the director. And I also felt it was immoral to turn down that kind of money.
That's fair.
I suppose I sold out, so I really couldn't object to what people wrote about me. You know what? selling out is just another way of saying you're successful. That's all it is.
Well, a lot of films that have a long legacy, and this film does, in my opinion, it's, you know, you know, we still talk about it, you know, and it's the kind of film you may show your kids at some point. Although we'll talk about some of the problems it has these days. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, he made a project that, you know, Siskel and Ebert destroyed critically. This film was hated across the board when it came out. But like those legacy films, it built an audience, like, over the years. The audience loved it, the critics didn't. Let's go back to this cast, Jace. I've got to start reeling out some of these names. So we have Burt Reynolds, obviously, as the lead. We've got Dom DeLuise. We've got Roger Moore, Farrah Fawcett, Adrienne Barbeau. We just watched her the other week in Swamp Thing. Dean Martin, of course, and Sammy Davis Jr. and Jamie Farr, let alone there's cameos by others in the other. Shirley MacLaine is listed in this movie, but I never saw her in this one. She was in the sequel as far as I'm concerned. And, of course, Jackie Chan in his first Hollywood role.
Yes. Jackie Chan, by the way, very upset whenever he got to the set and found out that he was playing a Japanese man. Because Jackie Chan is Chinese, and he was very upset because he thought he was playing a Chinese man.
I was actually wondering that in the film, because there is a scene where they're clearly on a Japanese game show, but when him and his partner are talking to each other, I'm thinking, oh, is that in Chinese or Mandarin? So they're... And then I'm thinking, nah, that wouldn't happen. You wouldn't have Chinese guests on a Japanese show. They're not friends of each other. So, yeah, he had to... Well, what a challenge if he was talking Japanese.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I don't have that kind of ear for language.
No.
I can barely tell the difference between English and French at times.
Oh, the fact that I'm even able to articulate English right now is a small miracle. I'm going to start this off, Jace, because
Fine, you just go right ahead.
I'm just taking over. You know, I'll just do whatever I want.
Know why I'm here.
I saw this at the cinema. I was dragged to this at the age of 7. Would I have been 7? No, 8 at the time. See this in the cinema. And remember walking out at 8, my frame of reference going, this is the single greatest film I've ever seen in my life. At 8 years old in 1981, considering culture and society where we were at this place, for me, that was almost the perfect movie. And I watched this movie on repeat early to the mid-80s dozens of times because it felt very safe, this movie. You know, there's nothing really too hard to tackle as an 8-year-old. You know, it's very like that. So my memories of a kid were very significantly positive of this film. What about you, Jace?
Same thing. I watched this movie a bit later. I think it was another movie that came on Showtime that aired quite a bit. And looking back, I honestly don't remember if I saw this first or if I saw the sequel first. I might have even saw Smokey and the Bandit and thought that it was the same movie as this. They all just kind of melded together. So watching this movie was sort of a experience in deconstructing memories that I had as a child. Same thing. I thought the movie was a lot of fun. It was easy to digest, especially with a young mind who didn't understand a whole lot. It was, let's get in car and go fast. Ha, look at that man. He's wearing, he's James Bond. Ha, look at that man. He's, you know, those guys have a very cool car that has all these computers on inside. Ha, that guy is dressed up like a superhero. That's this movie. I mean, it's I don't want to say harmless because I think there are some things that have kind of evolved into harmful, and I think that they were kind of harmful at the time. Maybe we weren't quite as aware of it. But overall, I think that there is a rather beautiful innocence to this movie.
After rewatching it, Jason, you can go first this time because
I was
this is a bit paradigm shifting. Yeah.
I was messaging you watching this movie going, oh my gosh, Jamie Farr's character is so racist. Jamie Farr, in case you don't know, is a white man who was playing a sheik in this movie. And this was coming off of the Iran hostage crisis of the late 70s, early 80s. And there was a lot of anti-Muslim sentiment in the world, much like there was post 9/11, and this character fed into it so much. Watching it now, I did not laugh at a single joke because I was just watching it like this, like, oof, no.
You've not only got a problem with the racial side and the very offensive, simplistic stereotype. Again, us being 8 at that time, we weren't conceptually understanding what was going on. It is so egregiously offensive. Not only that, the character doesn't really do anything in this movie.
He really
kind of
doesn't.
just disappears at the end.
He really doesn't. And you know, one thing I kind of noticed is that there are other ethnic stereotypes in this movie. The Japanese car team, where you will find Jackie Chan, for example, stereotypical. But with them, it's almost like, I don't want to say it's a fun stereotype because there's really no such thing as a fun stereotype.
No.
But there is a sense of merriment with it, and we're having fun with this because even at their cores, these two characters, they're just people.
They got the same kind of desires and needs
got the
as
same
we
kind
find
of
out in this
desires and
movie.
need as everyone else. And of course, Jackie Chan is incredibly entertaining in this role. The man is a superstar entertainer. With Jamie Farr's Sheik character, it's mean spirited.
It's all about
cynical.
Well, and it's very egregiously attacks the whole Middle Eastern culture with this. He's grandiose, he's rich, he just throws money at the problems to do it, and he can do whatever he wants. And that's really offensive, like by today's standards. But it is 1981. We're less emotionally intelligent at that point. As a culture, we're far less sensitive to other people's cultural situations. I don't forgive that and do not. It is not an excuse, but we as human people are evolving. So I think those films, as much as we could attack it all day long and say, this is wrong, we have to accept that that's the film that they made. And we learn from that. And we sometimes need to look past those things. And I think anyone who's watching along with us or discovering content from 30 years ago are going to find in most popular films problems.
Yes.
Especially, and here, when you want to talk about the other problems here, is some of the representation of women in this film.
Oh, my God.
Pretty bad. Like, you could even turn around and go the Farrah Fawcett character, who is played to be this numbskull, hidden nymphomaniac who's just there to be ogled at. I mean, they literally kidnap her, and this film goes, that's okay, because we're having a good time.
There's lots of... There were an uncomfortable number of sexual assault jokes in this movie. And I was just kind of like, wow. This movie is so lighthearted and so fun, and then all of a sudden they drop something on you that you're just like, that is wrong.
Can I think the line was
wrong.
So what did you think was going to happen here? I don't know, a gangbang?
Yeah,
we're racist, not... I'm going, why did that interaction need to actually happen at all? It wasn't funny. It wasn't driving the plot forward in any way. And it wasn't particularly romantic, considering you're both lensing your two main stars in these soft lenses, backlit, to make them look as beautiful as possible, and you drop sexual assault jokes. It's bizarre to me.
Back in the early 80s, everybody made those kind of jokes. So it was accepted. It is a sign of the times back then. Again, not excusing it, but I do think that it's important that you look at some of these scenes through a sociological and historical lens. Why did these happen? Not saying it's okay that they happen, but why did they happen?
And why it is important to be ever vigilant moving forward, that we don't go backward, that we move forward from that stuff. I even have a problem with Adrian Barbeau and the Lamborghini. And, who's wearing Lycra for 32 hours straight? You're going to cross 3,000 miles and 32 hours, I think 51 minutes is the record.
You're going to be swampy.
Oh, yeah, it ain't going to be comfortable.
You're going to unzip and like steam's going to come out.
That's right. So they're
steam and an alligator
cleavage to these officers, which is hypersexualized. But it does pay off in the third joke.
I was gonna say
quite well.
I think that was actually a master class in the 3-step joke, where you know you have to have 3 steps to a joke. And at first I was like, yeah, this is hypersexualized. This is not 100% appropriate. It's not offensive, but I don't know about this. And then the third time comes up, and you're like, oh, okay,
Miss
I
Tessmacher.
like that. That's funny, Miss Tessmacher. That's right.
That's right. So it was a Valerie what's her name? Valerie. I can't remember her last name. Wonderful actress, but yeah, Superman. But yeah. But besides that, I can't think of too much else that I found problematic, except how many times Dom DeLuise got slapped in this movie.
I thought that some of the jokes made at Sammy Davis Jr.'s expense were kind of, I don't know. They weren't even funny to me. It was just, a black priest, and I'm sitting there thinking here in 2023, yeah, a black priest. So
I thought that joke was iffy. Also, the joke when Burt Reynolds and Dean Martin are at the roadblock and they start firing insults at each other. And then Burt Reynolds called him chocolate something. I can't remember what the other word was. And I thought, wow, that's not even funny, dude. Yeah. But again, it was the time. I will say, Sammy Davis Jr. is well known and you can research this, you can watch many interviews, was a big part of creating that type of comedy and would have the final say on a lot of this stuff of whether that joke was going to be used or not. That doesn't excuse it again, but again, frame it from the time, because I don't want to paint a picture that Sammy Davis Jr. was racially vilified in this movie. He enjoyed being in this movie enough that he came back for the sequel.
You can tell that the majority of these actors had a good time doing it.
And that's what I want to get past. Let's move past the negative. Everybody's having a blast in this movie.
They were, and for as much as Burt Reynolds talks about how he didn't want to do this movie, he sure is hiding it well.
Oh, man. The interaction immediately between him and Dom DeLuise is like a warm hug.
It is.
The fact that the way they bounce off each other is so wonderful. Even in that, and the moment that Dom DeLuise, wouldn't it be so great? We have them and him. And Burt Reynolds hits his, and that moment, which I'm showing up on the screen now, and that moment is just wonderful. Dom DeLuise, to me, I'd only seen him in movies like The End. I don't know if you ever remember that movie about suicide, very dark comedy with Burt Reynolds. And I'd seen him a couple other things. But, man, him and Captain Chaos, as an 8-year-old kid, man, I was in. I loved it so much.
Me too. I wanted a Captain Chaos movie.
I wanted the outfit. I begged my mum, could you make me an outfit?
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun. And the fact that not only is he going through this, he gets the strength that he needs. It is questionable whether it's in his head or he indeed is a superhero in this film.
I think that it all just goes towards the premise that this is a live action cartoon, that it is absurd and it makes no sense. Just having Dom DeLuise as a superhero for no reason was just terrific.
It was terrific. You know what I especially love, especially with those two, is how they came to the point of choosing the ambulance. The fact that we got a shot of them, what was it, in a plane, which they land to get some beers.
No consequences. No consequences. It's a cartoon.
Mind you, let's not even get into the whole drinking and driving concept in this movie, which is totally embraced and supported.
Back whenever they made this movie, it was not illegal to drink in your car. It was just like, give me a beer. We've got another 8 hours till we're getting to Wally World.
Anyway, he flies, and then they go to speedboat, almost create a crash. We don't know if anyone died in that accident.
No,
but I love the fact where they realise. And do you know the guy in the ambulance who they say, how long ago? That was actually the director, Hal Needham.
Which guy?
Playing the guy in the back of the ambulance, telling both Dom and Bert, oh, yeah, we could get there in 10 minutes.
The creepy doctor was the director?
No, the guy at the back of the ambulance who, when they have the accident in the speedboat, and he's got the neck thing, and they get to that moment where it occurs to him an ambulance is the right thing to kind of go with. I kind of loved all that.
I did too, and it makes logical sense in an illogical movie. And
Yes.
I love whenever characters in a farce are smart.
Yeah. Yeah. I also love the introduction of what's his name in this movie? It's not James Bond. He's pretending to be Roger
He's
Moore.
Roger Moore. He thinks he's Roger Moore. Yeah.
Yes. Which I love the conceit of this film. He's not Roger Moore and he's not James Bond. He happens to look like Roger Moore, so he's pretending he's both Roger Moore and James Bond at the same time.
It's so
and
dumb. Works. It's so dumb, and I love it.
You know what? He because of this film, apparently it was written in all the James Bond contracts afterwards that you could never do a parody of yourself or the character in a movie again.
Yes.
Because Cubby Broccoli saw it and was like, man, I should sue them.
Well, there's no contract that says they can't do it.
They can't do it. But it was a genius move because it's the right fun element to bring into it. You know?
It was.
Roger Moore is having an absolute blast with this.
I love the fact that this contract that they ended up coming up with for all the James Bond actors was so specific that they couldn't even wear a tuxedo in a movie that was released at the same time they were playing James Bond. For example, Pierce Brosnan, whenever he was in the Thomas Crown Affair, the suit that he wears isn't buttoned up at the top, so it wasn't technically a tuxedo.
Oh, yeah. See, that's getting nuts.
Crazy. I love it. I love movies that come along and ruin things.
Well, you know, this came out the same year as For Your Eyes Only. So Roger Moore was actually appearing in a James Bond film the same year this was released. And that For Your Eyes Only made half the box office of Cannonball Run. And you got to remember, this is $1981. It grossed box office locally. That's just in the US, $160 million, which you could equate to now maybe a $500,000 return on a film that was budgeted at around $18 million. This thing was a cash cow.
It was, yes.
Yeah, so, yeah, James Bond. But anyway, I loved Roger Moore in this. I particularly also like seeing, because I was a kid that grew up watching a lot of Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis films. That was, as a young boy, they used to be on TV a lot. So I love Dean Martin. And Sammy Davis Jr., not as familiar with, but of course knew him. But they create a very irresponsible, fun element to this film because they both play alcoholic people who are dressed up like priests, who are hitting on women as quickly as they can, and betting on the entire race, which I just thought
it's just great. That's just such a Rat Pack thing to do. I'm kind of surprised they didn't. I'm surprised they didn't get Frank Sinatra to at least show up in a cameo at one point, or Jerry Lewis or somebody like that.
That's the sequel, remember?
Did he show up in that movie?
They go to meet him.
Oh.
Jackie Chan playing the Japanese and his offsider. Yeah, I agree with you too, Jace. It's offensive, but they're in on it. And the fact that they do certain things in that film, the fact they're always arguing, that the Jackie Chan's offside is trying to pick up ladies, put them in the car. That's how it starts off, which I love that. And the fact that Jackie Chan has needs and was lonely and decided to put a blue movie on while he's going at exorbitant speeds down a highway was hilarious.
It's almost respectable in a way. And, you know, that's one thing that I enjoy in English movies whenever you have a couple of characters who don't speak English and they're not subtitled, but you can still kind of tell what they're saying to each other. I don't know. There's something so appealing about that. It's almost like mime.
Yeah.
And I just love it.
Nah, and actually, you know, I'm going to say it now. Jackie Chan also he doesn't get a lot to do in this movie, but he gets enough that we even get to see him show off his martial arts skills in that scene, the roadblock scene, in that fight. And he gets a 30-second moment, which is so Jackie Chan at the end of it, when he does the 2 kick and then rips his pants.
Yes.
And I was going, that is so Jackie Chan, because that's what he did.
It is.
You know?
And I also know that the blooper reel at the end of this movie, Jackie Chan enjoyed it so much that he insisted that blooper reels be put at the end of his martial arts movies.
And you know what? I was thinking, you know, about this, Jason. Is it the first time that I think I'd ever seen blooper reels attached to an end of a movie. I'd never seen it prior
I'd
to
never
that.
seen it either, and I thought it was wonderful.
And you're right. The only other time I saw it was Jackie Chan movies.
Yep.
When he started introducing them. In fact, I would watch some horrible Jackie Chan movies. Generally, they were American made by this point, just to get to that blooper reel, because they were amazing. Because the other thing about difference between Jackie Chan's blooper reel and this blooper reel, Jackie Chan's usually involved with him getting severely hurt at some point through the blooper reel. Can't remember his name, but he's the environmentalist here, he's the main villain of this.
I've been calling him Walter Peck because that's who he reminded me of.
I'm with you. Yeah, Walter Peck. What a wonderfully comedic actor he was, because he had to take a lot of he's the punching bag of the movie. And he had punched around a few times. Maybe not in the physical sense, but the moment the two good old boys, I think there's a footballer. Is it Terry Bradshaw? Terry Bradshaw and Mel Tillis. Mel Tillis,
yes.
Yeah. I don't know if that's offensive these days, but I still found myself laughing at those guys. Even though they're doing the most irresponsible thing in the world, and that is loading their car up full of beer and driving drunk, I couldn't help myself at laughing at these guys. And that moment where they start up the car and ridiculously the window blows out, and who did we call him again? What did we call him?
Walter Peck.
Walter Peck falls down from there. From Walter Peck, you know, when at that bar scene, when those guys in the four-wheel drive crash through the bar, and so Burt Reynolds is like caught out. He's the doctor who has to check him out. You know, the water gun. Right? You have to make sure it doesn't get up the sinuses. Squirt there, squirt in his balls. And I thought, this is the level of comedy in this movie. And I'm in for it, you know?
Consequence-free chicanery, and I just love it.
Oh, it's just, you crash through an entire hotel and then you just go get a beer.
Yeah. You know, something else I really respected about this movie is that there was not a whole lot of exposition. They barely even explained what the cannonball was. They respected, even though this was a dumb comedy, they respected the audience enough that they thought the audience would understand. Yeah, it's a race. Okay, great. We don't need to explain anything. They all want to be in this race. Yeah. And it works. Yeah. It works so well.
This movie's a tight 95 minutes, right? We aren't looking at a 2.5 hour epic that we tend to get this day and age, which I have a real problem with. I love the fact that it was tight. Within half an hour, we're on the road. We're starting this race. And then we're getting just into ridiculous realms. And that's the most amount of fun.
Yeah.
Like, to me, one of the massive highlights of this film, I've been waiting to get for this because I love Dom and Burt in that role. But the need makes no logical self why you would need a doctor. But, you know, tasked with, hey, we need a doctor. Get me a doctor, any old doctor. And to be delivered this wonderful actor, Jack Elam. Now you get what I'm talking about. I think I referenced in the last show, and you think of the doctor. What an amazing performance. Because he is some of the funniest parts in this movie. He stole every scene he was in.
Yes, he did. And the background music every time he opened up the door, like...
He was a very popular actor in the 40s and 50s, Jace, because he was generally cast as the villain in westerns. So he had quite a long career in Hollywood, being villains in B-grade westerns or on TV and things like that. So he was a very talented actor. And yeah, his comedic timing was excellent. I mean, there's a moment in the fight scene where it happens to be Dean Martin standing there and Jack Elam like injects someone in and goes down. Dean Martin looks at him and goes, "What does it taste like?" "I don't know." Drinks that and then go, just the way he licks his lips and then fades off to the background. I'm killing myself.
Yes.
And the other scene where he goes, I've done it to myself all the time, was trying to inject Farrah Fawcett. Bert goes, "All right, show her, Doc." And go, "No. Show her, Doc." Does it, and the reaction he has, I just lose it. Like
I apologize for all the background noises you're hearing. I have a new kitten that is running back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and like running into walls. So that's what that noise is.
Can you just explain what the name of the kitten is? I think I just heard that. Can you please explain to the audience?
Her name is Battlecat.
So what is Battlecat doing? protecting Castle Grayskull right
Yes,
now.
protecting Castle Grayskull from Mr. Taco. Hold on.
This is hilarious.
This is what all the fuss is about.
Well, that Taco's got what it's coming to as far as
Apparently
Battlecat
so.
concerned. She thinks that maybe potentially that Taco's part of the Horde or on their way to Snake Mountain.
You want to talk about? I think that this cat is Captain Chaos, resurrected.
Once they start this race, it's kind of hard to follow because it's just joke after joke after joke. And we're just intercutting back and forward between all these characters and all these snappy one-liners and situation. It's really firing on all cylinders at this point. And a movie that is 41 years old, it's got an energy and a pace to it that some movies these days lack.
Yes, and I fully agree. And I think that the key to this movie's success, even though the critics didn't really appreciate it, is that it is just scene after scene after scene after scene after scene. They cut back and forth. So that way, if, for example, Jamie Farr's Sheik shows up, even though it's offensive and stupid and not funny, he's only there for a minute or two and then he's gone.
They're not there long enough.
And, now we're back with, Mel Tillis and Terry Bradshaw, or we're back with Dom and Bert, or, Adrienne Barbeau and her Barboobs trying to get out of tickets. It's very quick cuts. And I like that even though some of the scenes may not land, before you realize they're not landing, they're over.
Exactly. And that's why themes of drinking and driving, sexual assault, kidnapping, racial vilification is very varied because you're not with it long enough to really let it offend you or affect you. And a maliciousness does not exist in any frame of this film. Nothing about this is malicious. It's misguided, but it's not malicious. It's all about the fun. But Jace, we talked about this film already quite a bit, but we've remiss. Is this one of the great theme songs for a movie? The opening of this?
It's a good theme song. I don't think it's one of the best, though, but it's a good one, and it's a catchy one. It's an earworm.
You know why? Because it sets the tone of the movie immediately. It doesn't hide things. It isn't, a horror film will sometimes play a classic old song that isn't appropriate to sell a scene. No, this is telling you what it is. It's got that high energy kind of good old boys rock and roll, which I'm not a massive fan of, but I think the film is perfectly, the music in the theme song is perfectly fit for this movie, Most of this movie, all these stars are never together for just about all this movie. Except for, I think Skeletor's attacking Castle Grayskull, so Battlecat is going nuts. That's hilarious. Jason's going to have so much cleanup to do after this
thing is going in the cage next time we do one of these shows. Oh my gosh.
I think Battlecat's just into what we're into.
It's just like doing this all around my feet. It's just...
She's doing her own Cannonball Run in the floor.
I guess so. Just Cannonball.
It's such a catchy song. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna go back to that. So, but yeah, I mean, Jace, like anything highlights that really stick out to you about this film, except the fact that most of your collection is going to be on the floor.
I know.
What's Battlecat doing?
She is right behind. She's playing in a paper bag.
Beautiful. I love it.
Yep.
I love it, folks.
Can I have that? Give me that. Okay.
There we go.
It's a catnip bag. So of course now she's drinking and driving.
Yes.
Okay. Things that stuck out to me. It's just the overall sense of fun, innocent, mischief, consequence-free chicanery, and I just love that because it just seems like movies today have to have some kind of deep-seated moral, or you have to have characters who behave in ethical ways. The bad guys will always lose, the good guys will always win. None of that exists in Cannonball Run. It is literally
the good guys don't.
Yeah, it is literally every man and woman for themselves. I must have said consequence free so many times during this show today, but that's the only thing I can think of is that it's just consequence free. It's literally a Bugs Bunny cartoon. It's the wacky races. You can blow something up and you're okay in the next scene. And
Yeah.
I just find that just such a wonderful, silly throwback. And even though this movie does have some very drastic problems with the way that it portrays some people and some situations, I love that. I love the innocence behind this movie. The fact that this is a live art action cartoon. And I was telling you the other day, this is a movie that I actually think Hollywood should remake.
That was
They
my
should
next
do a
question.
continuation.
Let's get into that quickly before we wrap things up. I can't think of a film in my. There are two films that I am stunned that we don't have haven't been remade. One is, this is bias. One is Masters of the Universe. We all know that's ripe for a film remake. Here we go. And of course, Cannonball Run. Cannonball Run.
She just knocked my light over.
No way. She's trashing your place, dude.
Oh my god.
Cannonball Run
Worst.
had 2 sequels. Did you see both sequels? Did you know about Cannonball Fever?
I did not know about Cannonball Fever, and I didn't know about Speed Zone until I was researching this. I
I'm
had no
sorry.
idea.
Cannonball Speed Zone's called Cannonball Fever down here.
Okay, yeah, I did not know about that movie. I only knew about the first 2, so that's.
Do you know who's
something
in the
that I need to
cast
look
of
into.
that one?
I have
I think
not.
John Candy's in that film.
you're
Eugene
kidding
Levy.
me. Oh,
in
wow.
Cannonball Fever. Yeah.
Is Burt Reynolds back for that one?
No, he was done after number 2.
Okay.
Now, they've attempted to do really large ensemble kind of things moving forward. Not Cannonball Run. The only thing I can think of that steps out to me is a movie called Rat Race. They did.
I loved Rat Race.
It's the same kind of concept, a group
Yes.
of people chasing for something. I really love that. Though that's probably more in common with Mad, 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 Mad World.
Yes, which is
that
also a great movie.
brilliant film. Or Ocean's 11. Just the fact that you've got a group of big stars together, you know, it'd be too expensive if they all took their proper fee, but they're kind of together and they're bouncing off. But this film, absolutely, you could remake and you could have a lot of fun with. Now, Jason, we were chatting about this a little bit in the chat, and you've got some really cool ideas of who you would put in it.
You would need the Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise characters. We kind of disagreed a little bit on who would play Burt Reynolds. You said you thought it should be Ryan Gosling. I said Channing Tatum. Honestly, I think either one of them would
I think
be
they
perfect.
would both have shown really great comedic chops. Channing Tatum, 21 and 22 Jump Street is all you need to say.
Yes.
Very funny. And Ryan Gosling's, I love a movie called The Nice Guys. Not everyone
Such a
loves
great
it, but
movie,
I,
yes.
I love that film, and I thought Ryan Gosling was hilarious in that.
Yeah, for the Dom DeLuise character, I said Jack Black. Jack Black would be perfect for that.
Nailed it. Yeah.
The Farrah Fawcett character, I think Mina Kunis. And for the Doctor, Ron Perlman. Somebody who's just off-putting and scary. Put Ron Perlman back there.
It'd be pretty
And
great.
then my idea
Or
was
Kurtwood Smith, I would say.
Kurtwood Smith would be a lot of fun too. I got a soft spot for Ron Perlman though, so we could put Kurtwood Smith.
He'd be our number one. Kurtwood Smith would be, if we couldn't get Ron, we'd go for Kurtwood.
So the other racers, you could film them. You could get some of these racers and film them in a car over 2 days, and you'd have enough scenes for them to be in the movie. So I was thinking, in one car, we could have Elvira and Dolly Parton.
Amazing.
In another car, bring Jackie Chan back, but his new partner is Chris Tucker. They're not playing their characters in Rush Hour. It's just literally Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker.
Yeah, they're playing themselves.
They're playing themselves.
Is that your version of kind of spinning off the Roger Moore concept?
Well, I was actually thinking just have Pierce Brosnan just do playing somebody who thinks he's Pierce Brosnan thinking that he's James Bond. Or
you
not
know
James
what I
Bond.
thought about?
He keeps calling himself Jason Bourne because he can't even get it right. That way, we don't get sued.
I thought about that one. Sorry, before you go on, my spin-off for the Roger Moore thing would actually have Vin Diesel playing Vin Diesel. What? Doing the same thing as Roger Moore. Have a guy who looks like Vin Diesel who thinks he's Dom from Fast and the Furious. Because I think that would keep it relevant.
That would be funny.
Keep going, Josh. Who have you got?
I was thinking, again, just 1 or 2 days worth of work, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone in a car together.
That would be so amazing.
Chris Pine and Ethan Peck. They're not playing Kirk and Spock. Maybe they're playing a couple of bullies who like go to sci-fi conventions to beat people up.
Well, you've got Ethan. Did you mean Ethan Peck, or do you mean because you've got then?
I'm sorry, not Ethan Peck. Zachary.
Because that would work too.
To
that would because they could just be arguing what's better, the movies or the new show.
Yeah, that would be funny. You could get Natalie Portman and Daisy Ridley in one car. I just think that would be funny.
And you know what you would do with him? This sounds awful. Everything goes perfect for them because they're both Mary Sues. You play on the thing that Daisy Ridley was accosted for in the Star Wars movies, and you make that they just perfected everything.
And the final, well, not the final car, there would be more, but John Cho and Cal Penn. Just have those two hang out.
Yeah.
And just have them go like this the entire time. Like, is it just me? Or
if they're stoned the whole time, I would have it that they never go over 30 miles an hour because they're too high to go fast.
Yes. But in my script, these two would win.
Yeah, somehow.
Somehow they would win.
Somehow
they go get... How the heck did these two win? How did you even get ahead of us? We have no idea.
Actually, that's genius, and I'll tell you why that's genius. Because then you're going into... You're framing it the turtle on the hare moral.
Yes.
Aren't you? So we're getting to bring that element in. That's steady and that wins the race. It's beautiful.
I've got one more. I used to be a big fan of Speed Racer. So we would have a Racer X character who's masked the entire time. My thinking is, this masked character is always there to save the day or prevent disaster. And then at the end of the movie, they take off their mask and it's somebody so unexpected. Somebody like Barack Obama or, I don't know, Prince Harry. Somebody
Oprah.
huge. Oprah.
Yeah, Oprah would be amazing.
Somebody huge, like a world newsmaker. And
I know this would be problematic, but you get someone who'll be like a Bezos or an Elon.
Oh.
Both problematic for their own reasons. But if you want to throw it out there, that's what you would.
Yeah, I mean, you just somebody huge. Just somebody like, I can't believe that they were in this movie. Something like that.
I'd get Don Lemon and Tucker Carlson to share a car.
Oh, my gosh.
Because,
only if they went off a cliff.
But what you're bringing up and what you're highlighting is the great potential of a movie like this. It is so interchangeable. There are so many options available to create a fun, and you know what? I think Hollywood's soon going to get to that point where it's the right time for a new Cannonball Run movie because we are going through a period of extreme social and cultural education, learning, evolving. There comes a time where we're going to have to just kind of blow off a little bit of steam. Not in an appropriate way, but, be bipartisan. Who cares if it's left, right, whatever, as long as they're not, weirdos or anything. But, just bring in from all walks of life, from the movie industry, putting them together. Even TV. TV is at the same level as movies now. Mate, I would love to see Walter White and what's the name share a car.
Oh, Walter White.
Breaking Bad and Aaron Paul.
Aaron Paul, that would be fun.
I'd go down that track. You know what I mean? Like, there are so many things that you could do with it.
And, some of these actors, honestly, they could just have one scene in the movie, and that's it. You wouldn't even have to film them at the same time if their schedules wouldn't match up. Just do a split screen and make it look like they're in this car together.
I remember back in 2001 seeing Ocean's 11 and going, "Oh man, if that cast was doing a Cannonball Run movie, I'd flip out."
It would be amazing.
Because it would have been back then. You had George Clooney in his prime. You had Brad Pitt. You had Matt Damon. You had all these other and I think that's the movie it deserves. You can't. This is the key to the success of this movie. You have to have 2 or 3 massive names to lead it. Because if you don't get your top names, the rest of it won't work. You can have, television, and I'm not delineating them, or people who are not as famous as a supporting cast all day long, but you need those winners. If the movie was made 6 years ago, The Rock and Kevin Hart would have been the 2 stars in it. Thankfully, it won't be now, because their time is coming to an end. Thankfully,
yeah.
But I think it's a wonderful concept. It's a movie, like you said, with all its problems, it still holds up. If I would recommend this movie, I would absolutely.
I would too. Warts and all, I would.
I would disclaimer. There's a disclaimer. I would say to people in the beginning who maybe go, look, there's a couple of things, but you've got to let it go. But yeah, Battlecat. I
got it.
You got it. It's gorgeous.
I got it.
Little kitten.
Oh,
there
ow. Yeah, she's a sweet little kitty. She's just kind of, she's
I
having
don't know
zoomies
if
tonight.
she looks sweet, but I think the evidence is showing she's not acting sweet.
No, she. But the thing is, she's purring right now. I don't know if you can.
Right. She wants to cuddle. Well, it's a film that I wouldn't have not thought we would have spun so early on in this little journey, but I'm glad we did. It's a fun film. It's probably, out of the films that we've watched between Aitor, Swamp Thing, and this is probably the one I've enjoyed the most, not including our Friday the 13th. So I've had a blast doing this one for sure.
Yeah, this is my reaction.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my reaction. I enjoyed it. Warts and all, I enjoyed it. I would watch it again. I kind of want to seek out the sequels. Then again, I kind of want to wait until we see if we spin them on the wheel. So
yeah, I would wait. Honestly, I honestly think this is a film that stands alone, and the sequels are definitely part of the laws of diminishing returns. Yeah. So that's only my advice, but you may actually like the other ones more than this one. Interestingly enough, though, with Cannonball Fever, that's a Canadian production.
And this one was this was a foreign production as well that was teamed up with Americans. I want to say Hong Kong.
Yeah, something like that. But what I mean with Cannonball Fever or Speed Zone is I think it's all set in Canada, if I remember.
Oh,
like it's Vancouver and thing. I haven't seen this since 1989 when it first came out. I only watched it once, but that was my impression.
So it's like Cannonball Run, only people are more polite.
It's like SCT made Cannonball Run. That's the best way to put it.
Oh,
SCT. SCTV. So John Candy, Eugene Levy's, all that crew. Rick Moranis, I think, is in it as well.
I love Rick Moranis. I miss Rick.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's it, Jace. We've finished this now. Next week on the VHS Vault, we are back at Camp Crystal Lake. Yes, Battlecat, get excited. Next week, we're back to what apparently in 1984 was the final chapter, Jason.
Yes, the final chapter until the next chapter.
Until the next chapter, exactly 1 year later. They didn't even give it a year break. They went straight into the after. I have very fond memories of this film. I do consider it my personal favourite Friday the 13th. From my memory, but we're rediscovering, so that list is changing all the time.
As my memory serves, it's definitely one of the best. It's not my favorite, but it is one of the best.
And I'm looking forward to doing that. And of course, at the end of that episode, we'll get to spin the wheel of names and find out which random movie we'll be watching the week after. But until then, guys, you can find me at my social media above at VHS_Jason, TikTok and Twitter, because I'm lazy and that's the only two platforms. But if you want to see someone who's actually organised and is actually quite good at it, check out Jason Roy Gaston. You can find him freaking everywhere at this point at Jason Roy Gaston.
I'm Burt Reynolds in 1981. I'm everywhere. And I have confidence that I haven't earned.
And if you want to find out more adventures about Battlecat, make sure to check it out because we are getting a pretty well deep inside look at the machinations and real life struggles of Battlecat. Yes. Are we not, Jason?
Yes. She has a dark, twisted mind, and it is laid bare for you.
So it's investigative journalism at its best, and be sure to check that on his social media. And we'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Oh, don't forget, please like, subscribe, commit, comment, do anything. Send us money or Ferraris. I'd be happy with a new car. Actually, that Lamborghini at the beginning of this film. That would be really
beautiful nice. Car.
Beautiful car.
Isn't it beautiful?
All right, that's bye from me. That's bye from Jason. And say bye-bye, Battlecat. Bye-bye, Battlecat. We'll see you guys next time.